Good.
We're good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone, to our tech folks for fixing what was wrong, and for everyone in the audience and online, thank you for your patience. We are up and running. Okay. The first and only project on our agenda is final plat application SD 2504 of Autumn Hill Meadows LLC to subdivide an existing 13.5 acre lot development with a private road, 2 barns, a single-family home, and accessory shed into a .79 acre lot containing the 2 existing barns, Lot 1, and a 12.72 acre lot containing the private road, existing single-family home and shed at 197 Autumn Hill Road. Who is here for the applicant?
Brian Courier, O'Leary Burke Civil Associates.
Christopher Ruggiero, 250 Autumn Hill.
Sure.
And owner of Autumn Hill Meadows.
Thank you.
Sorry, there you go.
Okay. Let me just, okay. So, is there anything you'd like to say briefly before we, pardon? Sorry. Thank you, yeah. I'm going to swear you in. Raise your right hand, please. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to say before we get started and going through the staff report?
I would just say briefly, it's a very similar proposal that was in front of you for sketch 7 months ago, I believe, over the summer of last year. It's a simple 2-lot subdivision. It's roughly a 13.5 acre parcel. The remaining house is to remain on Lot 2, which is about 12.5 acres. And Lot 1 contains the 2 barns on the northwest corner of the property. That's roughly 0.8 of an acre.
Okay. Anything else before we dive in?
That's
Okay.
it.
You've read the staff report. Some of these comments I'll read because they're complicated. Others we'll just ask you, what do you think?
Certainly.
Number 1, I'm going to read. Given the extremely limited permitted size of proposed Lot 1 and the significant development potential of proposed Lot 2, staff recommends the board to direct the applicant to make a clear statement of the short and long-term goals for use of these lots. Staff recommends the board direct the applicant to explain why they are proposing this subdivision at this time and why they are proposing a subdivision which requires modifications regarding the wetland standards when it appears that they could instead propose a subdivision that doesn't impact the wetlands and achieve essentially the same buildable area in the end. So we're looking for your rationale.
Yeah, so I think we discussed that at sketch, or we touched on it at sketch. I'll start with Lot 2, which is the larger remaining lands that staff indicates does have significant development potential into the future. I'll reiterate what was discussed at sketch, is that we are showing a layout with 36 units on the eastern side of a Class 2 wetland complex, and then a small fourplex on the southwest corner. The intention of this layout is simply to meet town regulations to show that we're not handicapping or reducing the development potential of the remaining lands. Okay, so it's purely for illustrative purposes at this point. We have no intention of moving forward with this development proposal in the near future. Obviously, if we did, we would be back in front of you folks with a much more substantial multi-step process subdivision application. So that's not what we're here for. We're just merely trying to meet the regulations showing that we're not reducing the development potential of the remaining lands.
Thank you. Any questions?
I think a component of the question in the staff report was just the timing of this, of why this is being proposed kind of at this time, as far as, again, why it's being subdivided.
You can take that.
Well,
Because we would like to develop that lot. Housing is needed, it's important, it's right next to the road, and I think
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I guess that given the circumstances where, again, you're allowed to do this in the context of the regulations of, this one-off without the master plan, but we are looking at this kind of conceptual development. So I understand the desire to develop it in the future and subdividing it before you actually have those development plans. Can you speak to that thought process as well?
Yeah, so right now, the 2-acre carve-out is part of the regulations.
Yep.
I know when they were being worked on, last year towards the summer, that was kind of touch and go whether or not that aspect of the regulations is going to stay or leave or what have you, and we don't know what the future may bring. So it's part of the regulations now. The 2 barns are on that northwest corner, and that's the path that the applicant chose to take at this point.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So I would just jump in with the last piece. I think what you just said, housing in the barns, was one of the first times we've heard someone indicate a proposed use for the barns.
Yep.
And so, as we're looking at it, there are requirements for open space, and in this zoning district, there are requirements for vehicle parking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a possibility that this lot might be too small to accommodate everything that you're imagining or everything that could even be required.
Yep.
And so if there were more robust plans associated with the subdivision, the board has the authority to, allow the smallest lot possible to accommodate everything. And so at this stage, everything is just the 2 barns. It doesn't have the associated things that might be required to facilitate housing in those barns.
Right.
So it just feels like maybe there could be some handicapping of yourself by not having that conversation with the board at this stage
Yeah.
to get yourself more acreage.
Correct. And I would say that due to the wetland and buffer in that area, in our opinion, the redevelopment potential of that corner lot mostly remains within the footprint of those barns and to the road. So if that is adequate, maybe one barn has to come down for a parking lot and the other barn gets redeveloped into, a triplex or something. I think that may be a path forward, but the applicant isn't certain yet if that lot will be sold to an abutter, if they will do the development proposal, or if the lot will be sold and whoever wants to take up that challenge will do it. But as they don't know what path they're going to take at this point, we're merely trying to create that opportunity with the subdivision.
Thank you. Any other question? Okay, number 2, staff recommends that the board direct the applicant to clarify whether the provided figure of 6.04 acres, of buildable area includes just proposed Lot 2 or the entire existing 13.51 acre subject parcel. Staff further recommends that the board direct the applicant to provide a buildable area figure for the existing lot, the proposed Lot 1 and the proposed Lot 2, and to provide a narrative and/or map demonstrating how they arrived at these figures.
So would you mind, Marty, pulling up the plan I sent this afternoon? Thought I took the map option, as we engineers typically try to do. So I think our shading maybe was a tan color, wasn't as obvious. And staff's right, we did combine all the buildable area, including the lot 1, the lot 1 and 2 area. So what I've done here is I've separated the 2. Red is the buildable area that's associated with the remaining lands. That includes a smaller portion up along Dorset Street, and then the vast majority of the area is on the eastern side of that Class 2 complex. That area is 5.18 acres, and then the buildable area associated with Lot 1 in the northwest corner is shaded in green, and that area is about half an acre. So staff is correct, we did combine them. We've now separated them, and the reason they don't add up to the original number is I think we're including some of the right-of-way that shouldn't have been when we came up with that original number.
Questions, board? Okay. pardon me. Number 3, staff recommends the board require the applicant to modify the illustrative plan to incorporate access to the existing homes on Autumn Hill Road prior to closing the hearing.
So if you can go back to that plan again, Marty, and show the end of the illustrative public road, right. So I'm showing, I don't call out an easement as this is meant to be conceptual. I just have a placeholder there going to basically where the Autumn Hill Road is. That would show that that road would be connected to this newly built public road at some point in the future.
Okay. Number 4, this is about asking you to modify the illustrative plan to show the civic spaces.
Yep, if you can go back to that one. I apologize, I didn't realize how much level of detail it had to be in, but, so what I did was in the center there, I hatched an area that's 10% of all of the red area combined for the civic space requirement. So because we've broken down our buildable area between the new lot and the remaining lands, the density goes down. So the required minimum density of 5.18 acres is 31 units. So I removed a fourplex that used to be where it says civic space, and in return, we dedicated that land for civic space. But again, this is purely conceptual for neighbors listening in. If something does move forward, it would get more refined, but I think that answers the comment.
Thank you. Questions? Okay, pardon me. Number 5, this is a request for you to show on the illustrative plan that the stormwater area is greater than 5% of the buildable area.
Yeah. One more time. So the stormwater area is shown, if you could put your cursor on it there, Marty. Yep, so it's 0.23 acres. So that's just under 5% of the area total for the buildable area that I have shaded in red. But as it's split on 2 different sides of that wetland, I have a stormwater area shown that's just under 5%. It's like 4% on the eastern side. And then I have the balance on the western side, as we would have to do some kind of stormwater treatment for some units over there. So in totality, though, they're 5%.
Questions? Number 6, this is the condition for future illustrative plan. Make sure I know what I'm talking about here. Illustrative plan provided as part of this application. Alternative illustration plan prior to the approval. If the applicant continues to seek approval under 15A.08G3B above, staff recommend, bless you, the board include a condition requiring that any proposal for development of Lot 2 that does not generally conform with the illustrative plan provided as part of this application be required to provide an alternative illustrative plan prior to approval.
We're okay with that.
Okay, good. All right, number 7. Question, are there any existing archaeological or historical sites, including the barns?
So we're not aware of any archaeological sites, and then the historic sites, especially the barns. So we did look up the state register, both state and federal, and we didn't see a reference of these barns in those documents. If the city knows something.
No, I'm not aware of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something we're not aware of. I'm not sure what level of detail you're looking for there. Vermont Department of Historic Preservation in an Active 50 process generally is defined anything older than 50 years. Obviously, you know, the structures, the barns likely are older than that, but, you know, that's an Active 50 criteria for the city. You know, I don't know if looking at the state and federal registers and, you know, confirming that those barns aren't on it. I mean, they're on Dorset Street. You know, a lot of people pass by if they had historical significance. My guess is they would be on a registry by this point. They're not in the back of the property where nobody knows they exist. So, but that's the research we did once the staff report came out. So.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Number 8, if the board determines that there are existing site features on the subject property, staff recommends the board require the applicant to modify the plans to identify them and provide protection as necessary. Doesn't sound like that's an issue.
Nope.
Okay, 9. For the reasons described above under 15A09B2A, as it pertains to subdivision of resources areas, staff recommends the board grant a modification of this standard. Everyone okay with that? Okay. Number 10. How will Lot 1 be accessed?
Lot 1 is pertaining to the newly created lot. So there's 2 curb cuts on Dorset Street now. My expectation is when, or if a site plan gets moved in front of you, that Public Works is going to require some type of consolidation, is my guess. Depending upon the layout at that time, I guess we'll have to determine what curb gets closed, but my assumption would be Dorset Street.
Okay. Questions? Okay, this is about blocks. Does the proposed subdivision create a block according to the definition in the LDRs? And the definition is in front of us.
In my opinion, I don't think it's a block. I think it's a driveway curb cut.
Okay, thank you. What do
Yeah.
board members think? Is this a block?
I'm definitely gonna need a little more information on this to know what we're determining is a block or not.
Yeah, maybe, Marty, can you speak, or
Yeah.
Marla, can you speak to the intent?
So this section, a block is defined as an area of land bounded by streets or by a combination of existing planned or proposed streets or by physical features creating a barrier to the continuity of development such as public land, railroad, rights-of-way, waterways, and municipal boundaries. And so the reason blocks matter is there's limits on the size of blocks. The idea is that, as has been the city's goal since the 2006 or whatever comprehensive plan, is that the city be walkable. So blocks are supposed to be not over large. So the question here is this a block? Oh, you can't see my cursor. Shoot, zoom, come on, get out of there. Okay. So is this area creating a block?
Oh, okay, I didn't realize it was.
Do we need to
about the
determine
eastern
that
layout.
now?
I thought it was the other lot.
I thought it was the new one we were talking about.
And so if it
Why I
does
asked the
create a block,
question.
the question is sort of, is this a problem if it's, I think we came up with somewhere more than the minimum block length allowed. Yeah, it was slightly over 500. It was like 650 or something. Is that close enough to showing feasibility of development or not precluding, that this subdivision is not precluding any better arrangement, given that the standard is for blocks not being any longer than
Are you saying
600 feet.
because there will be a road that bounds it to the north, east, and west, but there's nothing to the south, right? Except for the property line. Does the property line count as a, because it's not a municipal
Right,
boundary?
it's a little weird, right, because the lands over here are NRP and possibly also habitat block, remind me?
Yeah. I
Their
think you're right.
habitat block.
Yep, and then the lands up here, wetlands, and then the lands over here are wetlands, so it really does have to kind of go down in order to meet the road standards, because you can't have roads that just dead end. And so, if so, is it creating a self-contained block, and is that block being longer than the standard exacerbated by this subdivision. And if it's not exacerbated by the subdivision, it's a condition that would exist regardless of the subdivision, then I think that you're okay.
Yeah, I'll say my experience with the wetlands program, especially in the last 5 years, redundant wetland crossings are very difficult to permit. So if the thought is that maybe a road would be along our northern property line with Sadie Lane to the north and this connection we're showing and Windswept to the south, I think that is a very difficult proposition to the wetlands folks. State wetlands folks, I mean.
So is it a block?
I guess more importantly is the block exacerbated, the block not being completely conforming exacerbated by the fact that this subdivision is happening, right? Because I think what Brian's saying is like, it could potentially be a block like this, but he thinks the wetlands program is not going to approve it. Wow, that's a big road, sorry.
Railroad track.
Is the reason this is important, forgive my beginnerness here, the reason this is important is because it affects whether or not that's a buildable area?
So all the
Like if they
questions.
have to reconfigure, then it would somehow like make it not a buildable area?
Right, is there something about this subdivision that affects the developability of the remaining lands?
Thoughts?
I think what Brian's saying is that he doesn't think even if the subdivision didn't happen, that a different block configuration would be allowed by the state wetlands
Right.
program.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's kind of not an issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I would, echo what Marla's saying, is that the subdivision being proposed doesn't exacerbate the issue. No,
Okay.
the issue is that that area is combined by wetlands on the west, the north, NRP and habitat block to the east. We're basically making that future roadway connection to the south in the most efficient manner possible to have the 32 units that are required to meet minimum density. So in order to do that, we have to have a certain amount of road frontage generally. So that's why we kind of have it swinging out and coming back. If we only had to do 10 units there, we could probably hug that southern line, but to get the densities that, the city's seemingly going for in these areas, you have to have road frontage.
Is a different configuration to the roadway if you didn't have to meet the density requirement?
I think there would be, yeah, we wouldn't, well, and again, this is for the
Yeah,
neighbors,
this
it's
is-
all
this
illustrative
has
and
nothing to do
and
with this,
conceptual,
yeah.
but yes, I'm saying we likely wouldn't build as much road as we're showing there if the densities were significantly less. But if you have densities, and you're only allowed a fourplex, you have to have road frontage to put the units on.
Okay. Let's move on. Number 12. I have a question about this. The reference to Article 12. Is Article 12 15A.12?
No, sorry, it's Article 12 is 12 point whatever. So it's later in the standards. Article 12 is the wetland protection standards,
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let me
or
read
I
that.
guess the natural resources. Yeah.
Staff considers that the requirements of Article 12 supersede the preferences expressed in the above criterion and recommend the board grant modification of this criterion. Does anyone disagree with that? No. 13, staff considers that the proposed illustrative configuration of unit types does not constitute a mix, and that the proposed illustrative layout does not adequately mix the units between blocks along the street and within the neighborhood as required by the standard above. Staff recommends the board discuss what they need to see from the applicant to determine that compliance with the above criterion is feasible and accept the illustrative plan.
So we do have the existing single-family house in the fourplex, but I'll say that, not a ton of thought was put into the type of units, given that it's, meant to be conceptual. So
Right.
could we break some 4s into some 3s and 2s? We certainly could.
Okay.
Brian,
But,
you said the required minimum density is lower with your recalculated buildable area. You said 31.
It is 31, yes.
So right now, how many are you showing?
I think we're still showing more than that, 33. We're showing 33,
And all the ones you're showing today are fourplexes.
correct.
Except for the
But we could
single-family.
drop, a unit in a couple of them for tries pretty easily. And then it does say we have to have 2, so technically we have the single family and the fourplex now, so. But yes, there is opportunity to add more of a mix, should that development
Okay.
proposal move forward at some point.
Not an issue now, though. Okay, 14. Is the applicant okay with this? Staff recommends that the board require the applicant to comply with the above standards as a condition of approval.
Yeah, so that's in reference to setting the lot corners, so.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, number 15. This is about the birdhouses. And should they be on the property boundary, or should they be along the wetland buffer?
The wetland buffer.
Is that what I said?
Yeah, it should be
Yeah.
on the wetland buffer.
Wetland buffer, okay.
Yeah.
It may make sense to pull the plan up, because it's a little bit of both. So right now, we're showing the rear line is based on the required setback requirement for the most eastern, well, they're pretty much in line with each other, but with the barns. That's what sets that rear property line. So that's where I'm showing the birdhouse demarcation. So if you did it on the buffer, they'd be in front of the houses, or in front of the barns, which I don't believe makes sense. So,
In front of the barns?
yeah, you see the buffer extends
Oh,
that blue
okay.
line to the west of the barns. So I think it makes sense to follow
yeah.
the property line as it's, as tight as it can possibly be on the east or the rear, and the south on the side yard setback, which I believe is 5 feet off. So we're showing demarcation on those 2 property lines. Then we'll follow the buffer as you head to the south. So we're proposing for this demarcation to take place off Lot 1 onto the remaining lands Lot 2. And as you go, you want to scroll a little down, Marty? Or Marla, whoever's driving? So then we start following the buffer, the blue line, once we get out of that property line. So it's a little bit of both.
Can I ask a question maybe for staff? So obviously the point of the demarcation is to identify the area in theory that shouldn't be disturbed and maintained. So in this instance, because those buildings are pre-existing, they get to grandfather that in as buildable area, and it doesn't have to stay undisturbed?
Yeah, so Article 12 allows for existing, like, lawns, structures,
Right.
and other things like that to be maintained, not expanded, but maintained. It doesn't really say that they're no longer in the wetland buffer, but
Right.
but they're allowed to be maintained as is in the wetland buffer. So it seems pretty common sense to put the birdhouses where Brian's showing them, but technically it's not what the regulation calls for. So that's why I just flagged it for.
Yeah, no. It
I don't want to make
makes
that call
sense.
myself. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Pardon me, 16, staff recommends the board and applicant discuss maintenance of the portions of the Class 2 wetland buffer on proposed Lot 1 that may have been historically maintained as lawn, including a discussion of allowed uses and potential limits on frequency of mowing. What are your thoughts?
So what I have hatched in green there is what I'm calling out as the buildable area. As you can see, the blue wetland buffer line, 100 feet is the city standard, extending from that Class 2 finger that kind of curls up, so you can see there's some upland in between the larger Class 2, in between, in the low point. And there's kind of this finger that comes up that, I don't know, historically, maybe they took some material out there to build up those barns is my guess. So it's likely a man-made feature, but, you know. So what I'm showing in green is what I'm calling the buildable area. I think the area that should be allowed to perpetually be used as it's always been used. Basically, it's the footprints of the structures to Dorset Street, and then outside of the buffer from there, which obviously there isn't that much.
Marla just mentioned to me, she said, you know, maybe that's a little limiting. You know, like I said, I'm not sure what the historical
Yeah.
usage or mowing patterns or whatever is over here, but
And we'd be more than happy to take from the structures to Dorset Street if the board is comfortable with that.
I think our comfortability is a little based on, the regulation is about what's been there historically, so I guess that's what we're trying to get at, is in between the buildings, has there been mowing there, how has that been maintained? Again, I know you explained
Yeah.
the one corner, so that's the point
Yeah.
we're trying to get at.
I think everywhere on that lot has historically been mowed. You know, there's not much there for, well, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, the neighbor across the street, Alex, who I think is here, that was mowed, and there was an actual, I won't call it a creek, I don't know what to call the water feature, but at one time, they were haying on both sides of the water feature that is now called the wetlands, that came down the middle. I mean, that was historical. So I've been mowing myself around the barns, in between the barns, on the other side, pretty much all the way up to, you know, where the actual water goes into the crosses there. I don't know if you can put the cursor on it.
Yeah.
Right down the middle, but pretty much up to there.
Yeah.
Where the hand is?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it looks like Marla's got kind of two choices.
I haven't found, I mean, there's no sinking of the tractor at any point or time on any of that. I know that has nothing to do with wetlands, but there is, you know, around one of the sides, closer as you get to where the little clouds are there, or whatever you're calling the stormwater area. Yeah, that gets a little soft. So I don't.
So this is like the pre-existing lawn area?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, at one time it was hayed. It was a hayed field all the way up.
Yeah.
So my suggestion was if they are limited to what they've called out as building area, then you're going to end up, and they want to redevelop, you're going to end up with a really awkward site to develop. And so I drew these two lines. I don't know if they're bright enough to see. Maybe I can even make them bigger.
Yeah.
But those are some potential ideas for how those, maybe you might want to say, you know, barn plus everything west of the green line, or just everything west of the orange line. Gosh, those colors are really hard to see. Just so that this, if this lot is redeveloped, it doesn't end up with this
Yeah.
development that really doesn't fit with the city's vision for how development should take place.
Right.
Yeah.
The blue line is a 100-foot buffer, right? That's the city requirement. So somewhere in between is a 50-foot state required buffer,
That's
right?
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So the blue line's closer to that 50-foot buffer, which is required by the state, and then that's more in line with where, if I was to go on like Google, right? Those areas are maintained as a lawn.
Yep.
That'd be a pre-existing lawn area.
Yep.
Okay.
So we, pardon me, come to
There
the
you go.
end of the questions, the staff questions?
So was there a conclusion on this one?
Yeah, I'll say it, with the additional testimony, I feel more comfortable saying that, giving them more flexibility and saying that has all historically been maintained and would fall under kind of, the exemption's the wrong word, but as a non-conforming development, that whole area would potentially meet that.
The whole of Lot 1?
Sorry, yeah, lot one.
What did you say, John?
I would think it sounds like the entirety of Lot 1 has been maintained as a lawn historically, so if they're subdividing that off as a buildable area, I'd say just take the lot.
Yeah. I mean, we can't build within setbacks, obviously,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
gonna be limited, so.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be demarcating it anyway, and.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, looking on Google Street View on Earth, it does appear that the lawn goes behind
Yep.
the barns, between the barns.
When was the wetland delineated?
Is it on that sheet, Marty?
It's in
I think it was 2 years ago.
a year and a half, maybe, 2, at the most.
No.
It was. I thought.
Fitzgerald Environmental did it, and I think it was 2 years ago.
I would feel more comfortable not saying the whole lot, but using the back of the barns as a line, right? Because that still, I mean, you can't develop within the 50-foot buffer anyways, so.
Right.
Right.
That's not our regulation, that's
Yeah,
somebody
no,
else, right?
yeah.
That you can't,
No.
supersede.
Is the back of the line, the back of the lot line within the 50-foot buffer?
Yeah.
Yes.
The black line with the triangles is the wetland.
But I think what he's saying is not our red line, but the one Marla drew, just closer to Dorset Street. So basically take the back of the structures forward.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, that's,
We're totally fine with that, too.
Okay.
So that's the end of the staff comments. Before we turn to public comment, do we feel like we have enough information before we hear public comment to close this?
This is one thing I'd like to understand a little better on the proposed plan, just to make sure I'm looking at it correctly.
Yep.
As far as traffic flow, the plan is to use, I guess it would be windswept, to come in around the curve and then jump over to the new proposed road? Or are you going to keep the existing Autumn Hill Road separate? I mean, it's just,
Yeah, so the,
diagonal line is throwing me off. And it looks like it would cut through the proposed building on the corner there, so.
yep, yeah, no, yeah, so it's, maybe zoom in there a little bit, Marty, it's kind of hard to see.
In the single curve.
Or, I'm sorry, Marla.
Right, because it doesn't actually show a road there, but.
Correct.
The idea is all that, whatever traffic is generated would be on windswept up until
Yep,
the 355.
yeah, so if that proposal goes forward at some point in the future, there was right-of-way left over from windswept coming around that bend. That gives public access through, I think it's a 50 or 60-foot right-of-way deeded to the city. That would allow for that public road connection to be made there.
And windswept's public.
Yeah, so we would work with the Autumn Hill folks to remove the section of road that basically goes to Dorset Street, and that would be their new access.
Just to clarify again, this does not authorize that to happen.
That's correct.
right? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
We asked them to do it, so they're doing it.
Yeah, we don't.
Just gotta turn my mic on. We're on the road, so Autumn Hill Road continues right along the property line. It dips over off the property line as the existing road comes back up, if I'm reading this right?
Yeah, just barely.
Does all that go away? If there's development for right now, you're gonna continue with Autumn Hill the way it is.
Right. Yep.
And nothing changes. If the development would go forward, the proposal would be to eliminate that bit
Yep.
and
Yeah,
keep it all on the property?
from where we're terminating that public road right away on the southern boundary to the east would be Autumn Hill Road. Anything to the west would get removed.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay,
I got one.
go ahead, Mark.
What happens to Autumn Hill Road once it gets to the first bend, where it sort of goes below those two quadplexes?
Well, if it's on the neighbor's property, they'll have to decide, but we would offer to remove that section and turn it back to lawn.
I know, but meaning it would go around, to get to the houses in the back, you'd have to go around the bend and then it would tie back up.
Well, so those two lots are accessed off windswept. So
Oh, okay,
they come off the end of the hammerhead.
okay.
But the ones back here,
And then,
1, 2,
correct,
3,
those ones off Autumn Hill Road would come off the end of the new public road.
The end of the new public road, okay.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
See what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
Yeah, the two just to the east of the two duplexes on windswept, those two single families,
No, I see.
those
okay.
come off of windswept.
I
And
know
then
how
the
those
one to
get
the
access
east
too.
uses Autumn Hill Road, but east of where we're
Okay.
showing that
Okay.
public road.
All right,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
Anything else, board?
I have a question too. So, northeast of the proposed parcel that we're looking at, the applicant also owns a chunk of land, and I think we covered this a little bit, but that is in the natural resource protection area. And so maybe an app question for you and or
Yeah.
staff of, it looks like that parcel will now be landlocked, or it doesn't look like there's access to it. So again, I don't have great knowledge of the natural resource protection area and what is allowed there, but it just occurs to me that that is kind of resulting
Yeah,
from this
no,
as
no,
well.
it's a great question. So there is some upland on that other piece. We had another sketch plan application filed the same time this one was, that was doing another 2-acre carve out, and it kind of, you can
Right.
see the property line though, as it's not part of this subdivision, it's not as heavy as we would normally make it, but just on the west, there you go. Yep, Marla's got it highlighted there. So between there, the 100-foot wetland buffer to the north and the NRP boundary to the east, we had a single-family lot. And
Right.
basically, there would be a access easement. You can see we have it labeled just below Marla's cursor there, a 20-foot future access easement. So that driveway
Oh,
would
okay.
essentially be constructed with the idea that it would follow that road right away. So at one point in time, if and when it got developed, that would be an opportunity. The other part of that remaining lands piece, or I'm sorry, not the remaining lands, but the abutting piece, also owned by the applicant, is there's a access easement off the end of Summerfield
Okay.
that the Jewett secured years and years ago. And I believe there's still provisions in the NRP district to allow a certain amount of limited development as long as things were tight, close together, and basically had, I think you can do 3 lots maybe if it's over 15 acres, I want to say, but don't quote
Only
me
if
on it.
there's not developable land outside the NRP.
Okay. So yeah, so another conversation for another time,
Yes,
but
very
an
much, yeah, I just
interesting
wanted to,
tidbit nonetheless, though.
the access, thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah.
I have a quick question before we move to public comment. So east of this development is a city lot. How does the city access that lot? Is there going to be an easement in this plat that allows the city access the lot? Right now, they don't have, I don't see where there's access for the city.
Yeah, so it's another good question. So the applicant has been talking with the city for over a year now, probably, about doing a boundary line adjustment in order to give or adjust the lot line so that they currently live in that keyhole-shaped lot, kind of in the middle of all the open or the public lands. So they've been working on a boundary line adjustment with the city to make that lot less irregular, less tight to all the structures, and in exchange, basically do an adjustment so the eastern side of that northernly lot there would be dedicated to the city and provide access via the end of Summerfield Ave, which has an access easement from the cider mill development. Unfortunately, there's a lot of I don't know what you call it, but legal hurdles, maybe, based on how that lot was dedicated to the city. So that's something we're still working for,
So there's no.
hopeful for, but
There's no pre-existing right-of-way to the lot?
yes, there's no pre-existing right-of-way from the subject property to where we're trying to get to. But it's an issue we're aware of, and we're trying to solve it by a different means, but it just won't happen tonight, so.
The city had recommended we work with the Scots, who originally dedicated that land as a nature preserve, and then come back together, both the Scots and us, to see if we could surpass some of the hurdles in the deeds and whatnot.
Yep. So,
Any other questions? Thank you.
thank you.
Now we will turn to public comment. Are there any people online who would like to make a comment? Just want to get a sense of how many people we have.
If you're online and would like to make a comment, if you could either raise your virtual hand or show your video, just getting a sense of how many people are going to be making public comment.
How many people in the audience would like to make a comment? Raise your hand. All right, can we start with you, host?
You want me to?
Please. Good evening.
Hello, I'm Michael Todd from 123 Windswept Avenue, and I appreciate that this hearing is just on dividing things up, but there has been a number of times that the overall plan for Lot 2 has come up and the building there, and in particular, in the last 5 or 10 minutes, the plan for the road, which would go off Windswept Lane. Now, we live in the place right by that right-of-way that goes across. And I think this has been raised before, but I just wanted to mention it again because maybe we won't be here when you discuss the future plan. But I really want to know why it isn't possible to keep Autumn Hill the way it is and therefore divide the traffic between the people on Windswept and up at the top of Windswept and Black Dog away from the people in a potential new development and have two different exits onto Dorset to avoid extra traffic, problems with fire engines, so forth, emergency services.
I can
Okay.
speak to that.
Go ahead, Mark.
I can speak to that as a board member who was on the board when Windswept was approved, and there was a lot of discussion that took place then about providing the easement for future development into Autumn Hill, and the whole intention was to not have two curb cuts coming out onto Dorset, and the plan all along was to make a connection to consolidate the roadways. So it was always the plan all along to make that combination, so.
Okay, I don't understand the
You
problem
also
with having
don't-
two curb cuts.
You don't want to have two curb cuts so close to each other. That creates a traffic safety issue in and of itself.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for your comments. Others? Hi.
Betty Goldberg, 153 Windswept Lane. And Mark, if you were on the board when all of our development had gotten approved, you're quite familiar with how difficult it was. I mean, we spent 14 years trying to do this development. So under duress, that was an agreement of the north and south of our property, if it developed, would come onto Windswept Lane. And it was out of duress because there was no other way the city was going to approve it. And I can go through, an hour of discussion about that. But at the time when it was agreed upon, the property north of us only was allowed, I think it was 15 or 16 units. That zoning has changed now, so it's approaching, 50 or, I don't know what the allowable is. The minimum now is 32 or 36 or something.
Right. More
So-
density,
I'm sorry?
more density.
Much more density. So the conditions are changed, and the Bulldogs to the south of us have just put in 1 unit. They're approved for 3. And I can't tell you the experience that we've had for months now, just with the construction and the havoc that it has caused in our neighborhood. So, we would want to discuss this again for sure if Lot 2 was ever developed. And, I don't think, I think it's the job of the Development Review Board to take into consideration the adverse effects any subdivision would have on our neighborhood as well. And maybe the answer to that is to reroute it over onto their development. And, they're obviously going to be a larger development than we are to take that burden. Just a comment I'm making.
Thank you.
Sure.
Others? Any other people in the audience who would like to speak? Okay. Anyone online?
I don't see
All right, so I would entertain a motion to close this hearing.
Move to close.
Second?
Thank you, John. Thank you, Jody. Any discussion? All in favor of closing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is closed. Thank you. Thank you for attending, all of you. Okay, and we have some minutes.
It sounds like I put the wrong minutes in the packet. So I guess I will make a note that I did that and that we are still that you are still needing to approve the March 4th and March 19th minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay,
So no minutes.
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. That's all right. Any other business?
No, did you have something?
Marla, I know you wanted to schedule some time as a board to discuss the ethics issues and legal consultation issues. Do you want to do that during our deliberative process or set
No,
some
that should be
separate-
during a public, the plan would be to have it during public session
As an agenda item?
as an agenda item.
Okay.
And with yourself and Charlie out next meeting, I think I'm going to ask the folks who are going to present to push to May 6th.
Okay.
Anyone who's not planning to be here May 6th? No idea. Okay. All right.
Great, all right. Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
I will end the meeting. Meeting is ended.